Hello and welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin, the crypto cycles, as well as other macro charts and indicators. So, starting off with fear and greed, as we were talking about last week, we saw Bitcoin and crypto get down into extreme fear, and it is having a nice bounce up right now. But maybe we'll see more of a bottoming formation here where it comes back down a little bit, and then we can start to reverse to the upside because it really isn't any bit lower to go. So, as we take a look in the past, we have not seen crypto get to this level of fear since before the bull run started. So that was in June of 22. The bottom was a little bit later. So sometimes do know this can be a leading indicator where we see fear or greed move a certain way in the overall price still is yet to fall. So if there is one more local low for Bitcoin, do not be shocked by that. But overall, we were at 10 in extreme fear, and now we are just at 33. So just something to keep in mind and keep an eye on. As far as the month of March, overall, seasonality wise, as we take a look, you'll see March tends to be a little bit less than 10% total returns. Again, this is just on average. You see a lot of red months in there, and overall, we can only compare it with a few other months that are in the single digits. So June, July, January, somewhat of December, it's pretty close to it. So March tends to not be one of the best months for crypto, but April tends to be the second best month overall for crypto, right behind November historically. So this may be a dip buying opportunity this month where we can get in at good prices before hopefully we start to see movement to the upside in April. Now, I know a lot of you all are here because you don't just buy Bitcoin, but you buy altcoins. So, on this channel, in these videos, I try to show you what I am looking for to show all of us when is alt season, when are we for sure getting this rotation, and not just random altcoins pumping one here, one there, XRP 1 month, Cardano another. So we take a look at those charts as well as say, when can we start seeing a trend towards some of that rotation? When Bitcoin becomes too expensive to buy, when it reaches its peak, that's when we see the mega alt season. But we can still see alt pairings against Bitcoin do well. And I'll show you what indicators I look for to see that. Now, this drawback overall, we've reached something around the 30% range, I believe. But do keep in mind that in these uptrends to the top, it is normal to see 20 to 40% drawdowns. So keep that in mind. Whenever we get these drawdowns, tend to be some of the best dip buying opportunities. If you believe the cycle top isn't in yet, I don't believe it is. But what matters is what you believe. If you don't believe the cycle top is in yet, then this could be a good dip buying opportunity this month. Looking over at the alt season chart, it's been in an uptrend ever since 2023. Higher highs, higher lows. We're at a higher low right now. And as far as the rainbow chart, let's start getting into this. You can see that it almost got into that orange zone a couple times, but it's now come back into the light green zone. So overall, when you see this, you may just look at this and say, well, Bitcoin is at a cheaper value because it's down here. But something to keep in mind is that on this log regression chart, log scale, logarithmic scale goes up factors of 10. Regression means it flattens out over time. You can see that these peaks are getting lower and lower each time too. So I've been saying for the last year or so that I'm conservatively only looking for Bitcoin to get into one of these orange color bands, the light orange and the dark orange. So if that's true, then maybe you'd say Bitcoin is closer to the middle than it is the lower end of this. But those orange color bands you can see, they start at 124K and go up to around 200K. if we were to see a top in April. That's just projecting it out. But as far as that green band is concerned, the one that Bitcoin just got into, you can see that. Let me try to scroll this closer. That green band, the lower end goes all the way down to 71K. I find that ironic because of some things I see in the charts. I'll show that to you in a little bit. So remember that 71K mark for the green band, and also remember that 120 to 200K area that we see in those orange boxes. We'll be taking a look at that. Now, on this channel, I also talk about various altcoins and Bitcoin miners. I do technical analysis on that, so subscribe if you want to hear more about that detail. I'll also talk about the stock market too. All right, so as we are taking a look at Bitcoin on the weekly time frame, we have on the moving average indicator, that's 20, 50, 100, 200. Right now you can see that Bitcoin's candle body is still hanging around or above the 20-week moving average. That's a good thing. However, if it were to break under that 20, but so far it's holding up pretty well, but if it was, you can see that this 50-week moving average is at around 77K. So if it did break down this next level, that we have 77K, and it could be followed by a wick that gets somewhere around, remember that 71K mark we talked about? The reason that's important is that's where the former all-time high used to be, is at around 69K. And you see all these candle wicks. Last year in March, it wasn't able to get through that all-time high fib line. We did have wicks above it, but never candle body closes. As soon as the candle bodies were closing later in the year, November, then we ripped up to the next area. So do not be surprised if it did break this 20-week moving average to see a candle body rest somewhere on the 50 and a possible wick down to the lower 70s if this was to break. Going over to the daily, you can see here that as Bitcoin was holding on to the 200-day moving average, we've seen a bounce. However, you want to watch what the price action does at these moving averages. Are they bouncing off support? Are they breaking support? Okay, now this was getting rejected by the 50-day moving average resistance, broke support, came down, caught support around the 200-day moving average, but now it is hitting resistance at this 100-day moving average. So I do think it's important to look at these moving averages, and if we continue to see rejection up here, then it is more than likely we see the price of Bitcoin come back down somewhere around that 86K range if this continues to show rejection. A couple other indicators I'm watching here as far as Bitcoin in the near term. I think these are good indicators for you too. So this whole suite indicator, it's like a bull market support band in a way. You can see on the weekly that anytime we get underneath it, it tends to be a little sideways downwards for a bit. A month or so here went from late July to or mid-October, so about 2 months down here. When it breaks through the band, it's bullish, but again, when it got underneath it, this was from May all the way to October, so about 6 months worth of sideways or bearish. And we just crossed underneath that line back here in middle of February. So best case scenario, if it's something like this, then maybe we, again, look for the month of April, middle April, hopefully earlier, where we can then see it start to power through. But we've had 2 months underneath, 6 months underneath. We'll see. But one other indicator I think it's important to pair this with would be the MACD. And the MACD is negative right now. However, the last few times it has turned positive, the moving average convergence divergence, when it turned positive, boom, we had a big move up from, this was around 67K all the way to eventually 109K. Right here, when the MACD flipped positive, we saw Bitcoin get from around 30K all the way to 74K. And then there was a little bit of divergence back here But the MACD was flipping positive for a while when Bitcoin was around this 21K area. And eventually, when it did play out, got up to 31K. So that was more bullish divergence to begin this whole bull market in this cycle. But the last couple times, really the last three times, yes, I know it went down there a little bit, but for sure the last couple times when that MACD broke up, which is right when this Hull Suite breaks up. So there is the MACD and the Hull Suite. I wonder if their data is sort of based off similar metrics. When we break up and through it, when we get positive, that's something to look for. But again, remember that this can take a month or two or possibly even more. But some indicators to keep an eye on: the MACD and the Hull Suite indicator. Now, as far as what I was talking about with the rainbow chart, remember what we were saying with that topping range, that orange boxes, 120 to 200K range. Well, remember, that's where our fibs line up as well. So if you take your fib retracement, you drop from our prior cycle high to the low, and you take our fib off log scale to take a look at those price targets. You can see the 1618 at 102K, that's where we got rejection. We saw candle wicks getting through, but no candle bodies closing above and making support. And the fib retracement, that's based off the golden ratio. Same thing back here. Yes, Bitcoin was making new all-time highs, but there was only wicks above. However, if Bitcoin starts to eventually, let's say it's April or May, get above the 1618, the next major fib target area is 155, and the 3618, 210. Now, the last cycle, Bitcoin topped in this range right here, the 3618 to the 4236. We can take a fib and we can drop from the 2017 high to the 2019 low, and you can see the Bitcoin price got up to 69K, and even this first top, it sort of stalled at the 3618. So last cycle, Bitcoin topped out here, but remember, we have log regression. The prior cycles also made it to higher fibs each time before. So I'm not looking for Bitcoin to get as high this time around. I'm not looking for it to get above that 3618 because that's where Bitcoin topped last time. So I'm looking more around this range of the 2618 area. And again, that lines up really nicely where the orange band is. So if we're looking around that 155K, as we get later into this year, that's going to be more into the lighter orange band just at the start of it. But if we get into the 200K area, then we start getting into the dark orange band. And so, just something to keep in mind is that these tops, you see how it comes down a color zone each time. The next color zones are the orange band. So if Bitcoin just gets into that dark orange band, and it's sometime later this year, maybe we see something around 180 to a 200K Bitcoin. That would be something I would watch for. And that's verified right here at the 2618 fib extension. We also have nice indicators that are called the log regression indicator. Very similar. This shows us a general range though. And when we see the log regression, where the last two tops made it into that red band, you can see here the upper areas from the midline on up. If you're wondering where that is right now, let's say you believe in a top in May. Well, this whole section up here, that goes up to around 190K by the time it gets there to 134K. So 134K to 190K. If you're looking something like more of a 4-year cycle, trying to line it up with December and November down here, you can see that by the time I'm just kind of drawing a straightish line here, that would be at that 155K area. Remember, that's the 2618 fib all the way up to 210K, which, as you recall, was the 3618 fib. So later this year, we would see between the 2618, the 3618, and that would line up with our log regression. So I don't know when the top of Bitcoin will be, but If it were later this year, that would be prices to look for. Now, going back over to the alt season flow chart, remember, we don't see this come to completion until Bitcoin is done topping. We've been taking a look at that, showing how Bitcoin dominance only starts to roll over once Bitcoin is already topping. But other indicators to look for that we want to see a reversal on is this Bitcoin dominance or the Ethereum Bitcoin pairing. Now, Bitcoin dominance, it's stalled out here at around that 64%. When we draw a fib from the high, it's not perfect, but the high to the low, you'll see the 786 there. We need to fix this, put it on log scale. You'll see the 786. I was like, I know it lines up. It's right at around 64.27%. Well, dominance wicked perfectly to it. So I'm wondering if we're going to see dominance come up here and hopefully see this hold. Hopefully see this hold so dominance starts to form a top here and then move back down. If we add on some RSIs and take a look at, okay, are we showing any bit of signs for a reversal? You can see here, this is on the weekly. The RSI is definitely going to lower peaks each time, and we have a lower base as the price is moving up. So what does that mean? Is that there is bearish divergence. So that's something to look for on the RSI. I do wonder, how does it look on the monthly? The monthly even, I mean, if this is peaking right around here, that's even a little bit of monthly bearish divergence. And as you can see, last cycle, when it got underneath that moving average line on the RSI, that's when we saw big moves down. So monthly can be an indicator to look for. We got to bounce off it. But if this RSI starts to move under that moving average, that would be another sign that we could see dominance coming down. Now, overall, as far as bull markets are concerned or bull trends, we have to watch this 50-week moving average, this gold band. And when dominance bounced off that 50-week moving average, it was still technically bullish. So we want to see the RSI break under. We want to see the gold band get broken as well. Looking at the shadow of Bitcoin dominance, we have the Ethereum Bitcoin pairing. This is trying to answer the question of, when could we see an overall trend from alts doing well against their Bitcoin pairing. So we have Ethereum bleeding against Bitcoin. Now, this line, I just drew it horizontally. We can see there is some prior action in the past that it's hanging around. So is it possible this could be a bottom? It is. People look at this in various ways. Some people look at this as a channel because we have these lower highs and, maybe we expect lower lows. Not sure about that, but we want to watch and see if a base is here, but we're truly not bullish until we break above this orange band. And look how disconnected Ethereum Bitcoin is from that orange moving average. If Ethereum Bitcoin starts to get bullish and rips up through that, you're going to see big price action swings in Ethereum. I'm talking about Ethereum going to a range of between 7,000 to 11,000. We also have the others Bitcoin pair. And so others is the chart for all cryptos outside the top 10 cryptos by market cap. And we've been taking a look at this and showing that this is in a channel. Let's take off the moving averages so we can simplify this a little bit here. We have this fib drawn high to low, and last cycle it reached a 1618. So if we continue in this channel and wait for an alt season, I'd be looking for a peak of alt season in here. When the alts are going parabolic, we want to see others Bitcoin up here. But compared to last cycle, you can see after a bottom, we can have some chops, some swings. So is it possible that we are seeing a bottom for others Bitcoin? It's possible, but we want to see this hold up And as we were showing with the RSI, are we getting any bit of a bullish divergence? Well, you can say in a way we are. We have the RSI slowly starting to swing up as the price is coming down. So that's bullish divergence, just sideways here. But we are seeing this move upward in the strength as this moves downward. So maybe it is possible we are seeing the ending of a bottoming process for altcoins, Ethereum against Bitcoin. And it is possible that this flush that we get here for Bitcoin underneath that whole suite indicator, remember that one I talked about, that this may be it. Here's two ways I'm looking at it, is that if there is any sort of recession to play out, and this is a very long crypto cycle where the top's in, I don't know, 2027, 2028, that we would either get rejected the next time we hit the hull sweep band and go negative from there, or if we are going to see that 4-year cycle play out this year, that once we break through this, if this goes along with seasonality as far as what we've seen in crypto before, then we might just staircase our way up as we've been seeing this whole time. So Bitcoin just seems to be staircasing its way up, and if it just continues to slowly grind and then top out again sometime later this year, that's what I'd watch for, is to see it break back up through this whole suite indicator. So I like this as a dip buying opportunity regardless. I think a lot of altcoins are still at good discounts. But whether this alt season is later this year or down the road, that's something you have to be mentally prepared for, because every cycle does something a little different. All right, let me know what you think in the comments below. I hope you all have a wonderful Monday and a fantastic week. Take care.